Not everyone who smiles at you actually likes you. Some people do not show anger, they hide it behind calm faces and polite words. And the unsettling part is this: they may be part of your daily life. You speak to them, you trust them, you think everything is fine, yet beneath that surface, something else is building quietly, a feeling that does not disappear, a feeling that slowly shapes the way they act around you. There are 7 subtle signs people show when they secretly resent you. These signs are easy to miss because they are small, controlled, and often disguised as normal behavior. But once you learn to see them, everything starts to make sense. The strange tone in someone's voice, the lack of real support when it matters, the quiet reactions that feel slightly off. These are not random moments. They are patterns, and patterns always tell the truth. In this video, you will learn how to recognize those hidden signals. You will understand why people hide resentment instead of showing it directly. You will see how human behavior reveals emotions even when words try to cover them. This is based on psychological observation and behavioral patterns used by experts like Chase Hughes, where the smallest actions often expose the biggest truths. And some of these signs are so common that people overlook them for years, even while they are being affected by them. As this unfolds, you will begin to notice how certain behaviors connect in ways you did not see before. One reaction leads to another, one small sign builds into a larger pattern, and by the end, you will have a clear understanding of who truly supports you and who only appears to. This awareness can change how you see your relationships, your environment, and even your own instincts. There is one sign in particular that almost everyone ignores. It feels normal on the surface, but it reveals more than any words ever could. Once you recognize it, you will start seeing it everywhere. That is why staying until the end matters, because missing that one detail means missing the full picture. This is not about creating doubt or fear, it is about clarity. It is about seeing people as they truly are instead of how they present themselves. Because the truth is simple. People always reveal their real feelings, just rarely in obvious ways. Welcome to the channel. If you want to understand human behavior on a deeper level and learn what most people overlook, make sure to subscribe and stay with us for more videos like this. There are moments when something feels slightly off, even when everything looks normal on the surface. A conversation sounds friendly, the words seem polite, yet there is a quiet tension underneath it that is hard to explain. Someone smiles, agrees, even encourages you, but the feeling that follows does not match their behavior. It lingers in a subtle way, creating a sense that something is missing or being held back. These moments are easy to dismiss because there is no clear reason to question them. Everything appears fine, so the mind tries to move on, yet the feeling does not fully disappear. It often shows up in small interactions, the way someone responds a little too quickly, or sometimes a little too late. The tone that sounds supportive but lacks warmth, the reaction that feels rehearsed instead of real. These details are easy to overlook because they are not strong enough to stand out on their own. They blend into normal behavior, making it difficult to point to anything specific. Still, the pattern slowly builds. One moment connects with another, and over time it creates a quiet sense of doubt that is difficult to ignore. There is also a difference between words and presence. A person may say all the right things, offer encouragement, and appear to be on your side, yet their energy feels distant. It is not something that can be measured or clearly described, but it is there. A lack of genuine excitement when something good happens to you. A slight shift in attitude when attention moves in your direction. These reactions are subtle, yet they leave an impression that feels real. The mind begins to notice these signals even without conscious effort. It picks up on tone, timing, body language, and emotional consistency. It compares what is being said with what is being felt. When these do not align, a quiet alert starts to form. It does not come as a clear thought, but as a feeling that something is not fully right. Many people ignore this because it seems too small to matter or too uncertain to trust. Over time, this creates an internal conflict. One part tries to accept what is being shown on the surface, while another part continues to question it. This tension grows with each interaction that feels slightly out of place. The more it happens, the harder it becomes to dismiss. It is not random, and it is not without reason. The mind is responding to signals that are present, even if they are difficult to explain in words. Behavior experts like Chase Hughes explain that human behavior is rarely random. Every reaction, every pause, every shift in tone carries information. People may try to control what they say, but controlling how they behave in every moment is much harder. This is where the difference begins to show. Words can be planned, edited, and adjusted, but micro-behaviors happen automatically. They appear in small expressions, subtle timing, and brief changes in energy that most people overlook. These micro-behaviors are not dramatic. They are quiet and quick, often lasting only a second. A slight delay before responding, a forced smile that fades too fast, a change in eye contact at a specific moment. On their own, these signals may seem meaningless, but when they repeat in patterns, they begin to reveal something deeper. The mind picks up on these inconsistencies even without conscious effort. It notices when actions do not fully match words. People who feel resentment rarely express it directly, especially in situations where they want to maintain a certain image. Instead, that feeling finds its way into behavior in subtle forms. A person may appear supportive, yet their reactions lack genuine engagement. They may say the right things, but their timing feels off, or their tone lacks sincerity. These small details create a disconnect between what is being shown and what is actually felt. According to behavioral analysis, the body often reveals what the mind tries to hide. Emotional leakage happens when a person cannot fully suppress their true feelings. It is not intentional. It is a natural response. Even when someone is careful with their words, their behavior can still expose hesitation, discomfort, or resistance. These signals are not strong enough to create immediate clarity, but they are consistent enough to create a pattern over time. This is why certain interactions leave a lasting impression without a clear reason. The mind is processing more than just words. It is reading rhythm, energy, and subtle changes in behavior. When these elements do not align, it creates a quiet sense of awareness. That awareness builds gradually, shaped by repeated experiences that feel slightly inconsistent. Understanding this changes how interactions are perceived. It shifts attention away from what people say and toward how they act in small, unguarded moments. These moments are where true feelings become visible, even when they are carefully hidden beneath controlled expressions and polite conversation. One of the earliest signs appears in a very quiet way, often easy to overlook in the moment. It shows up when you share something meaningful, something that took effort, time, or courage, and the response you receive feels unusually flat. The words may sound polite, even positive on the surface, but there is a lack of depth behind them. A quick "that is nice" or a short nod that ends the conversation too quickly. There is no follow-up, no curiosity, no sense of genuine interest. The interaction closes before it has a chance to grow. This kind of reaction creates a subtle pause. It is not strong enough to cause immediate concern, yet it feels incomplete. When people are truly happy for someone, their reactions tend to expand. They ask questions, they show engagement, they stay present in the moment. Here, that expansion does not happen. The response feels contained, almost controlled, as if there is an effort to acknowledge without encouraging further attention. Over time, this pattern becomes more noticeable. Achievements that should bring energy into the conversation seem to fall flat. Important moments are met with minimal response, while less significant topics receive more attention. The difference is not always obvious, but it creates a quiet imbalance. It becomes clear that the reaction is not about the situation itself, but about how the person feels toward it. There is also a certain timing to it. The response often comes quickly, almost too quickly, as if it is automatic rather than thoughtful. It lacks the natural pause that usually comes when someone is genuinely processing good news. Instead, it feels like a default reaction, something said to move past the moment rather than engage with it. This creates a sense of distance, even within a conversation that appears friendly on the surface. The tone plays a role as well. It may sound neutral, but it does not carry warmth. There is no shift in energy, no sign of shared excitement. The moment remains one-sided. where only one person feels the significance of what is being said. That difference in emotional presence becomes more noticeable with repetition. At first, it seems small, almost insignificant, something easy to dismiss or rationalize, but when it happens consistently, it begins to stand out in a different way. The pattern forms quietly, revealing itself through repetition rather than intensity, showing more through what is missing than what is said. Another sign appears in the form of compliments that do not feel entirely positive. The words sound like praise at first, but something within them creates a slight sense of discomfort. A sentence may begin with encouragement, yet it carries an added phrase that changes its meaning. You are doing well, but then comes a quiet condition attached to it, a comparison, a limitation, or a subtle remark that lowers the value of what was just acknowledged. The shift is small, yet it changes the entire tone of the interaction. These kinds of comments often pass unnoticed because they are delivered with a calm and friendly voice. There is no obvious negativity, no direct criticism, only a slight edge that is difficult to point out. It may sound like support, yet it does not fully feel like it. The mind registers both parts at the same time. One part hears the compliment, while another part notices the underlying message that follows it. This creates a mixed signal that is hard to interpret in the moment. The structure of these compliments tends to follow a pattern. Positive words are placed at the beginning, making the statement easier to accept. Then comes a subtle addition that shifts the focus. It may suggest surprise, as if the achievement was unexpected. It may imply that the result is unusual for someone in your position. These small details change how the compliment is received, turning it into something less genuine and more controlled. There is also a sense of distance within these statements. True praise usually connects people, creating a moment of shared positivity. In this case, that connection feels limited. The words acknowledge success, yet they do not fully support it. Instead, they introduce a quiet comparison or a hidden judgment that separates rather than brings closer. This creates a subtle tension that remains even after the conversation moves forward. Over time, these remarks begin to form a pattern. They appear in different situations, always carrying the same structure and tone. Each one may seem minor on its own, but together they create a consistent impression. The positivity never feels complete. There is always something attached to it, something that slightly reduces its impact. This kind of communication often reflects something beneath the surface. It allows a person to appear supportive while still expressing a different feeling in a controlled way. The message becomes layered, where one part is visible and another part remains hidden within the phrasing and tone. Another pattern begins to show in moments that carry real importance. It becomes visible when support is expected, when presence matters, and when actions speak louder than words. At a surface level, everything may seem normal. Conversations remain friendly, interactions stay polite, yet when a situation requires effort, time, or genuine involvement, there is a noticeable absence. The person who once appeared supportive becomes distant without clear explanation. Plans change, responses slow down, and attention shifts elsewhere. This absence is not always direct. It does not come with clear refusal or open disagreement. Instead, it appears as quiet unavailability. Messages are delayed, commitments remain uncertain, and help is offered in ways that feel minimal or incomplete. There is always a reason, always a small explanation that makes the situation seem understandable, yet the pattern repeats often enough to create a sense of imbalance. Support exists in words, but rarely in action. At the same time, a different side becomes visible in other situations. When someone else succeeds, the reaction is more present. There is engagement, acknowledgement, and sometimes even enthusiasm. The difference is subtle, yet it creates contrast. One moment receives attention, while another passes quietly. This shift does not need to be obvious to be felt. It shows through consistency, through repeated moments where energy appears selective. Growth is another area where this pattern becomes clearer. Opportunities to encourage, guide, or assist are often avoided. Advice remains vague, feedback lacks depth, and involvement feels limited. There is no direct resistance, yet there is also no real contribution. The interaction stays at a level that prevents deeper progress. It maintains distance while still appearing neutral on the surface. There is also a change in presence during important milestones. Moments that should bring people closer feel unexpectedly quiet. Recognition is brief, reactions are controlled, and conversations move on quickly. The energy that usually surrounds meaningful progress feels reduced, almost as if it is being held back. Over time, these moments begin to connect. The lack of presence, the limited effort, and the selective engagement form a pattern that becomes harder to ignore. It is not defined by what is said, but by what consistently does not happen when it matters most. As these patterns continue to unfold, there is one detail that tends to slip past almost everyone. It does not stand out in an obvious way, and that is exactly why it remains hidden for so long. It blends into normal behavior, appearing harmless, almost expected in everyday interactions. There is no clear signal that draws attention to it, no strong reaction that forces a second look, yet it appears consistently, shaping the way conversations feel without being directly noticed. This detail often hides in moments that seem too ordinary to question. A slight pause that feels natural, a response that sounds acceptable on the surface, a reaction that fits just enough to avoid suspicion. Nothing about it seems strong enough to raise concern, so it passes without much thought. Over time, it becomes part of the background, something that is experienced but rarely examined. What makes it different is the way it repeats. It does not appear once or twice and disappear. It shows up again and again, always in a similar form, always carrying the same subtle tone. Each time, it feels small, almost insignificant. But when these moments begin to connect, they form a pattern that is difficult to ignore. The repetition gives it weight, turning something minor into something meaningful. There is also a certain consistency in how it appears around specific situations. It may show up when attention shifts, when emotions change, or when certain topics are introduced. The timing feels precise, even though it does not seem intentional. It reacts to moments that carry importance, yet it remains controlled enough to avoid standing out. At first, the mind may register it without fully understanding it, a brief sense that something is slightly off, followed by an immediate return to normal thinking. The feeling fades quickly, leaving no clear explanation behind. This makes it easy to dismiss, easy to overlook, and easy to forget. Yet it continues to appear, quietly building a pattern beneath the surface. As awareness grows, these moments begin to feel different. They become easier to recognize, easier to connect, and harder to ignore. What once seemed random starts to show structure. The same behavior appears in similar situations, creating a sense of familiarity that was not there before. The shift happens gradually, without a clear point of change, until the pattern becomes visible in a way that cannot be easily dismissed. Another sign begins to surface through behavior that feels indirect and difficult to address. The words used may seem harmless on their own, yet they carry a tone that suggests something deeper beneath the surface. Comments are delivered in a way that sounds casual, but they leave a lingering sense of discomfort. There is no clear accusation, no open disagreement, yet the message feels slightly pointed, as if it is aimed without being fully expressed. This creates a situation where the meaning is felt more than it is heard. These interactions often come in the form of subtle remarks that can be interpreted in more than one way. A sentence may sound like a joke, yet it carries a hint of criticism. A suggestion may appear helpful, yet it includes an underlying tone of doubt or disapproval. Because the message is not direct, it becomes difficult to respond to it clearly. Addressing it feels unnecessary, yet ignoring it does not feel right either. This creates a quiet tension that stays within the interaction. There is also a pattern in how frustration is expressed. Instead of being communicated openly, it shows up in behavior, a change in tone, a slight withdrawal, or a shift in attitude that is not explained. These reactions often appear after small situations, yet they seem larger than the moment itself. The response does not match the situation directly, suggesting that something else is being carried beneath the surface. Timing plays a role as well. These behaviors tend to appear at specific moments, often when something meaningful has just been said or done. A positive moment may be followed by a subtle remark that changes the tone. A neutral conversation may suddenly include a comment that feels slightly negative. The shift is quick, but it is noticeable enough to leave an impression. Over time, these patterns create a form of quiet resistance. There is no direct confrontation, no clear statement of disagreement, yet the behavior reflects something unresolved. Actions replace words, and reactions carry meaning that is not openly shared. The interaction continues on the surface, but beneath it there is a steady flow of unspoken tension that shapes how each moment feels. Another shift becomes noticeable during moments when things do not go your way. These situations often reveal reactions that are more telling than any words. At first, the response may appear neutral or even slightly supportive, but there is a subtle difference in the way attention is given. When a mistake happens or a plan does not work out, the level of engagement seems to increase. There is a quiet focus that was not present before, a sense of interest that feels out of place for the situation. This attention shows itself in small ways. A slight change in expression that passes quickly, almost unnoticed. A brief smile that does not match the seriousness of the moment. It is controlled and subtle, yet it leaves an impression that is difficult to ignore. The reaction is not strong enough to be called out, but it carries a tone that feels different from genuine concern. It creates a contrast between what is expected and what is actually felt. The way questions are asked can also reflect this shift. There may be more curiosity about what went wrong than about how to fix it. The focus stays on the mistake rather than the solution. Conversations linger around the problem, giving it more space than necessary. This creates a sense that the situation is being observed rather than supported. The interaction feels less about helping and more about watching. There is also a difference in emotional presence. When positive moments happen, reactions may feel limited or controlled. But when something goes wrong, there is a noticeable increase in attention. The energy changes, becoming more engaged in a way that feels inconsistent with earlier interactions. This contrast begins to stand out over time, forming a pattern that connects different experiences. These moments often pass quickly, making them easy to overlook. The expression fades, the conversation moves on, and everything returns to normal on the surface. Yet the feeling remains. It creates a subtle awareness that something in the reaction did not fully align with the situation. The mind registers this difference, even if it is not fully understood in the moment. As similar moments repeat, the pattern becomes clearer. The same type of reaction appears in similar situations, creating a connection between them. The attention, the expressions, and the tone all follow a consistent structure that becomes more noticeable with time. Another pattern begins to show through shifts in energy that feel difficult to predict. One day, the interaction feels open and positive. Conversations flow easily, responses come with warmth, and there is a sense of connection that feels natural. Then, without any clear reason, that tone changes. The same person becomes distant, their responses shorten, and the energy feels noticeably colder. There is no clear event that explains the shift, which makes it harder to understand. These changes often happen without warning. A normal interaction suddenly feels different, even though the situation remains the same. The words may stay polite, but the tone loses its warmth. Eye contact, timing, and engagement begin to shift in subtle ways. It is not an obvious rejection, yet it creates a sense of distance that was not there before. This inconsistency makes it difficult to form a stable sense of where the relationship stands. The confusion grows as this pattern repeats. Just as the distance becomes noticeable, the warmth returns again. Conversations become engaging, attention feels present, and the connection appears restored. This creates a cycle that feels unpredictable. Each positive moment seems to reset the impression, making it easier to overlook the previous shift. Yet the pattern continues, moving between warmth and distance without a clear explanation. Over time, the mind begins to track these changes. It notices how the energy shifts depending on the situation, the timing, or even small details that are not immediately obvious. The reactions do not feel random, yet they do not follow a clear, consistent pattern either. This creates a sense of uncertainty, where each interaction feels slightly different from the last. There is also a subtle emotional effect that builds through these experiences. The unpredictability creates hesitation, making it harder to feel fully comfortable in the interaction. The mind begins to anticipate change even during positive moments. This quiet awareness stays in the background, shaping how each new interaction is experienced. As these shifts continue, the contrast between different moments becomes more noticeable. The difference between warmth and distance feels sharper, even when the changes are small. The pattern forms through repetition, revealing itself not through a single moment, but through the way these moments connect over time. Another pattern becomes clear during periods of progress and personal growth. As things begin to improve in your life, as new goals are reached and new opportunities appear, the dynamic starts to shift in a subtle but noticeable way. Communication becomes less frequent, responses take longer. Conversations that once felt natural begin to feel limited or distant. There is no clear conflict or disagreement, yet the connection does not feel the same as before. This change often happens gradually. At first, it may seem like a normal adjustment, something that can be explained by routine or circumstances, but over time the pattern continues. Moments that would normally be shared or discussed begin to pass without acknowledgement. Updates receive shorter responses, and enthusiasm feels reduced. The interaction remains polite, yet it lacks the same level of engagement that was once present. There is also a shift in presence during important milestones. Achievements that mark growth or improvement do not bring the same level of attention. The reactions feel controlled, sometimes delayed, and often minimal. Conversations move on quickly, leaving little space for recognition or discussion. This creates a contrast between the significance of the moment and the response it receives. As progress continues, the distance becomes more noticeable. The connection that once felt consistent begins to fade in small ways. There is less effort to maintain interaction, fewer attempts to stay involved, and a general sense of withdrawal that is difficult to explain directly. It is not expressed through words, but through the absence of engagement where it would normally be expected. The timing of this change often aligns with moments of visible growth. When improvement becomes clear, when results begin to show, the shift in behavior follows. The pattern does not appear randomly. It connects with specific phases, creating a link between progress and distance. This connection becomes easier to recognize as similar moments repeat over time. These experiences build a quiet awareness that something in the dynamic has changed. The interaction continues, but it carries a different tone. The space between conversations grows, and the sense of connection feels less stable. The pattern forms through these repeated shifts, revealing itself through absence rather than direct action. Resentment does not always look like hate. It rarely announces itself in obvious ways. Most of the time, it stays hidden beneath polite words, controlled reactions, and quiet behavior. Sometimes it hides behind smiles and silence, blending into everyday interactions so well that it becomes difficult to recognize. But when you step back and look at the patterns, a different picture begins to form. The truth is, people reveal how they feel about you through consistency in their actions, not through what they say in a single moment. Each small sign, on its own, may seem harmless or easy to dismiss. A flat response, a subtle remark, a shift in energy, but when these moments repeat, they begin to connect. They create a pattern that speaks more clearly than words ever could. And once that pattern becomes visible, it changes the way interactions are understood. You begin to notice what was always there, just below the surface. Once you see these signs, you start seeing people differently. The same conversations carry new meaning. The same reactions feel more clear. It becomes easier to understand who is genuinely present and who is holding something back. Have you ever noticed any of these signs in someone? Or maybe you felt this kind of energy before but chose to ignore it? Let me know in the comments, and if this opened your eyes and gave you a new perspective, make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more content like this.